going to do my first video COVID update, and I've decided to make it educational because I think visuals are super important, and just in like a Facebook post, you really can't catch kind of the generalities of what we want you to learn. So I think, given that we're almost a year into COVID, it's good to do a little bit of review. So I've actually made a timeline going all the way back to January of 2020, all the way to today, to make some of the points I want to make. And just so you know, on March 16th was when then President Trump issued his 15 days to slow the spread. Well, just so you know, we are now on day 323 of our 15 days to slow the spread. And the first thing that I wanted to kind of talk about is, one of my pet peeves is people keep saying, if you care about others, you should wear a mask, even though there's no evidence that masks do anything for the person who wears it or anybody else. I do think we should take a stroll down memory lane and see how the recommendations have changed over time. So we first heard about masks back in January when Tony Fauci was saying, no, we really shouldn't wear masks. They've never been proven to be effective. And all of the data up to that point had always shown for respiratory viruses that wearing masks don't do anything outside of the hospital setting. We know that N95 respirators are effective when you're taking care of people with respiratory infection. And there was even questionable data on whether people who had respiratory infections wearing like surgical masks or cloth masks, whether that was even effective if you knew they had it as source control. So anyway, so you see the message until about June of this year was that masks don't work. There's no reason to do it. There was some talk back in mid-April through early June that masks might reduce people's anxiety about COVID. So you did start to see some messaging, well, it might make people feel better if we tell them to wear masks. Then, without a single study that looked at patients wearing masks, helping them or anything, in June, everyone all of a sudden said, oh yes, we should definitely wear masks. Masks are so effective, even though there's no new data to show that. So it was wear a mask to protect yourself and others, and not just others. But then we got a little wrench thrown into the plan when the Danish did a randomized controlled trial of 6,000 people to see if wearing a mask led to a statistically significant reduction in the cases of laboratory confirmed COVID. The only randomized controlled trial anywhere in the world. And guess what? There was no benefit to wearing a mask. So they had to change their message, as ridiculous as it could be. Well, that just proves that wearing a mask doesn't protect the person wearing it. But we should wear masks to protect others. Now, if anyone out there can explain to me how you might design a study to show that wearing your mask protects others, I would love to hear how you might design that study. So basically they said, you know what, we say it works. We're going to put a bar up there so high that no one can ever disprove it. So you better do it. And if you don't care about other people. You're a bad person. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So the end of this year, the message is wear a mask to protect others. Now, in 2021, the message is wear 2 masks to protect others. Wear 3 masks. Actually, 4 may even be better. Why don't you wear a dozen masks? I mean, the ridiculousness is just insane. And you can get Tony Fauci on an interview saying, well, yes, it's common sense that if you wear 2 masks, it's better. The very next day, he gives an interview saying, well, there's no actual data showing that 2 masks is helpful. And then the very next day, he goes back to, oh, yes, wearing 2 or more masks. Tony Fauci is an idiot. I mean, he's probably not really an idiot, but he's lost all credibility. But this is kind of the timeline on wearing the mask. Now, just so you know, if you want to look this up for yourself, you can look up a study by McIntyre and others in 2015. They did a randomized controlled trial in the hospital setting, having hospital workers wear cloth masks and surgical masks. They did find that surgical masks in the hospital setting might have a little bit of benefit, but that cloth masks actually had increased infection in hospital workers who wore cloth masks. So all these cloth masks that people are wearing, that cute little mask, isn't doing anything. And by the way, it might actually increase your risk of infecting yourself with a respiratory illness. Then there's a great article in the CDC's journal Emerging Infectious Disease by Xiao et al. In 2020. It's a meta-analysis looking at wearing masks with hand washing alone, and wearing masks with and without hand washing. They looked at a total of 20 studies that had 11,000 participants, and when they compiled the results of it all, they found that wearing a mask did not provide any benefit whatsoever. This is in a journal that the CDC actually produced. You can look it up yourself. And last but not least is the Danish mask study by Dr. Bungard and others, and it was published in the Archives of Internal Medicine in October of this year. It is a randomized controlled trial. It is the most definitive statement that masks do not work. They do not slow the spread of COVID, and if you're wearing a mask, you're doing it to make yourself feel better. But that's just the fact of the matter. It may not be popular, but it's the facts. I get a lot of people that said, "Oh no, the CDC says it." And I have no idea why the CDC says it. It's the most ridiculous thing out there. Now, they also say, "Well, what's the harm in wearing masks?" Okay, there are definite harms in wearing masks. The first thing, mask mouth. This was described by dentists in New York at first. So when you wear a mask, it's harder to breathe out of your nose. You actually breathe more out of your mouth. That makes your oral cavity much drier. And when your oral cavity is drier, then you get gingivitis and cavities. And there's actually pretty good data showing that systemic inflammation can be triggered by poor oral hygiene. This is affecting children and adults. And I'm sure the pediatric dentists out there can attest that they've seen an increase in pediatric cancers and pediatric dental problems. Maskne. Now, yeah, it doesn't sound too bad. If you're occluding your face, you get more acne, proliferation of bacteria, and it sounds like, oh, well, that's not bad. It's just acne. Well, there is a condition called periorbital cellulitis, which is where if you get a pimple and you kind of pop it and it goes the wrong way, it can actually create an infection. And Google it and look up periorbital cellulitis. People have actually died from periorbital cellulitis. So saying that your mask isn't going to kill you is a little bit of an understatement, because it could. The facial feedback hypothesis. Basically, have you ever heard the saying, when you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you? Well, it's actually true. When you see someone smiling, or you yourself are smiling, your mood elevates. Your body releases dopamine. It releases endorphins. It makes you feel better. No wonder everyone is so angry right now. No wonder people are unhappy. They are not seeing any smiling faces except when they're in their homes. It's insane. So, no wonder we're seeing record levels of depression, anxiety, and suicide. I mean, it's just natural that if people aren't around you socializing and happy, that you're not going to have a good mood and you're going to have those problems. The hearing impaired population, they need to see your face to hear you. When you wear a mask, your voice is muffled. By the way, when you can't hear someone with your mask on, aren't you pulling it down and talking like this? Yes, you're touching your mask. You're putting more germs on your mask. The idea that this is helpful is just insane. The visually impaired. If you wear glasses and you've got your mask on, you can't see because your glasses are getting fogged up all the time. How many accidents on the road have been caused by people in their car? You see them all the time driving with their mask on and their glasses fog up. I don't know, but I'm sure it's happened. So, and the last thing, children who are actually allowed to go in school in person in many places are required to wear their mask all day. They're being yelled at by their teachers if their mask slips below their nose. This constant reprimand for something silly like a mask is creating childhood anxiety. We're teaching children to look at their colleagues in class as potential sources of deadly diseases. For, by the way, COVID is not deadly in children. It's actually less lethal than the flu in children. My children who are under the age of 10 probably won't get COVID. I have a 13-year-old. She might get it, but if she does, it's not going to be bad. It's going to be like a cold. It's just, again, the media, the CDC, the NIH, they have really dropped the ball and miseducated people on COVID. And last, I do want to kind of talk a little bit about the cult of masking, okay? Where we talk about, if you're wearing a mask and the cases go up, you're not wearing them hard enough. One mask isn't going to do it. You need to wear more masks. Now, if the cases go down in a place that's wearing masks, then they say, oh, look, we told you masks work. We were right. Now, if you're not wearing a mask and the cases go up, wear a damn mask. That's what they all say. Wear the damn mask. If I hear someone say wear a damn mask one more time, just don't get near me. You might see a little shade coming your way. All right. And then when cases go down where they're not wearing masks, just wait a few weeks. The cases will start showing up then. Well, actually, when you look at Florida with no mask mandate versus California and New York, which have mask mandates, Florida has done much better. How could that be? Miami-Dade, Florida, which has the most mask wearing in Florida, has the most cases and the most deaths per capita. How could that be? LA County in California, which has had a mask mandate since May, they lead their state. So if masking works, how come it doesn't work? Again, it's a cult. Everyone believes it, and it's, the bigger the lie, the more people believe it. I don't understand, but the data is there. And then, isn't it interesting how the people who are trying to virtue signal about how good they are by wearing masks are the same people last year who were trying to get all the plastic straws banned because plastic straws are killing sea turtles. Dude, leave my plastic straws alone. I want to use a plastic straw, that's fine. But the same people somehow think that billions and trillions of these in the ocean and in landfills are somehow not bad for creatures and sea turtles and all of those sorts of things. I mean, seriously, people. I mean, literally, if you were yelling for plastic straws to be banned a year ago and you're saying wear a damn mask, you're a hypocrite. Just plain and simple. What's your plan for getting rid of all the litter we've created with masks? Okay, and now, going to how much money the United States government has wasted on COVID, okay? So, the first COVID bill was passed in March, $112 billion. It was the let's get things started bill. Then we have the CARES Act, $2.2 trillion. Because we shut businesses down, which was a mistake. We know it was a mistake. And it cost us $2.2 trillion. Then we had the second COVID relief bill that passed in December, and that was $900 billion. And now we have a proposed third COVID bill where they want to spend another $1.9 trillion. Now, let's put that into perspective. So, total spending just on COVID in less than 1 year in the United States will exceed $5 trillion. Now, we have 320 million U.S. citizens. So we have spent $16,000 per U.S. citizen on COVID. If you're a family of 5, that's the equivalent of the U.S. government and your congresspeople and your senators sending you and your family a bill for $80,000. Because guess what? someone is going to have to pay that back one day. Let's put that into perspective. The top 3 world economies by gross domestic product. Gross domestic product is how much money a country produces in goods and services in 1 year. So the US is number 1 at 21 trillion. China is number 2 at 15 trillion. And the world's 3rd largest economy is Japan at 5 trillion. We spent more money this year on COVID than the country of Japan produced with all of their goods and services. Now listen, I'm not saying that COVID isn't worse than the flu. Statistically, it is worse than the flu, somewhere between 5 and 10 times worse. But we have not reacted to it 5 to 10 times more significantly than the flu. We've reacted to it millions times more significant than the flu. I mean, the entire budget of the CDC for a year is about $10 billion. The CDC is the one who is in charge of doing flu prevention, making sure we've got enough flu vaccine, all of that. So we go from spending about $10 billion on all of that to 5.1 trillion. It's insane. It should make you angry. If you were a Trump supporter and you were angry about the election, you should forget about that. This is what should make you angry. This should make you mad. We have basically allowed the fear and anxiety of adults to enslave and indebt our children for years and years to come. That should make everybody angry. That certainly makes me angry, especially for something that is only less than 1 magnitude worse than the flu. Those are the facts, people. And things only change when we demand that they change. You've got to turn off the TVs. You've got to not listen to Dr. Fauci. You've got to start living your lives and just resist. Stop following what they're telling you to do because it's not working. It will never work. The idea that we're going to eradicate COVID one day is ridiculous. It is going to be the new influenza. It is going to be around for years to come. We can't keep spending $5 trillion a year to try to battle something that we can't eradicate. That is my message. I want you to share this video with your friends, with your family. We'll see how long Facebook lets it stay up. Probably at some point it'll get reported and be censored as misinformation. Now, I dare them to find a single thing that I've said that's misinformation. It's all accurately sourced and anyone can find it, but I'm sure someone isn't going to like that I'm criticizing our government and the NIH and Dr. Fauci. But when criticism is warranted, it needs to come. Thank you guys, and I'll keep these coming if I get good feedback.